A very special presentation today with our special guest, Lawrence Samuel, and he'll be speaking on age-friendly ending ageism in America.
Sure. Again, my name is Larry Samuel, and I am in Miami, Florida, for all of those wondering. And I have a little company here called Americulture, in which I help clients think about American culture in different ways and how to turn the past, present, and future of our culture into business opportunities. And I also write books when I have time, and I have a new book coming out in a month, which is called Age Friendly, Ending Ageism in America, and that's what I want to talk about today.
There we go. Perfect.
Excellent. So here we are. So what I'd like to do today is go through basically the outline of the book. I'm going to follow it very closely. This is just about a 25 minute talk, so I've allowed plenty of time at the end for questions or chats. So my tech assistant here, my daughter, my 9-year-old daughter, thank you. So basically I'm going to start off with an introduction, which basically sets up the idea of the book, why I wrote the book, why I felt there was a need for it. The first chapter is about ageism here in this country, something I'm joining the chorus of themes that other people have spoken about and which I addressed in a previous book. Then I'm going to go into the happiest part of the story, which is age-friendly communities, of which I'm part of one here in Miami. The third chapter is about age-friendly work and the opportunities to be had there. The fourth is age-friendly marketing, thinking about older adults as consumers. The fifth chapter is about age-friendly responsibility, specifically how corporations can do a better job with being corporate citizens. And then I'm going to wrap up at the end and offer a few suggestions on how to get a more age-friendly place. Okay? So first, why did I write this book? About 5 years ago, I started confronting what you might call ageism. I was just being treated differently than I had in the past. I'm a white male, upper middle class person of privilege, you could say. But people started thinking and acting towards me differently, especially in the workplace. And that was sort of shocking to me. And so I decided to devote much of my professional career to this idea of ageism. And this book is part of that. And that's not my quote. The last openly tolerated form of discrimination. It may or not be true. I think plus size people also face a lot of discrimination, but I think there's a lot of validity to it. You have to concede that a lot more attention is being paid these days to biases based on the color of one's skin and gender than age. So I think age has some catching up to do in that regard. And I think this is a very exciting place to be historically. You know, if you just think about history, this time and place, there's a higher percentage of older adults on this planet than ever before. So the age wave or silver tsunami, whatever you want to call it, is truly a historic event. So I kind of want to be part of that because this is a special moment in time. I also want to correct the many myths and stereotypes that our culture has about older people, that we're in mental and physical decline. You know, I see it as a very positive experience. So I'm trying to coin another term, which is age positive alongside age friendly. I think it's a wonderful time of life. So I want to be a voice of positive aging and serve as an advocate for baby boomers. I'm right in the center of that generation, 1956. And I'm just seeing a lot of boomer bashing out there with the OK boomer and lots of other stuff going on. And I think it's unfair. I think we're a great generation. I think we achieve great things. So I put those out there to remind people that we're not responsible for the bad state of the world. We get a lot of the blame for that. And we did some great things in our time and are still doing great things in our time. So I have to remind people about that. So age-friendly, I define this term as inclusivity of older people in 3 different ways: as workers or employees, as consumers, because we're a consumer-based society, and just as people, as citizens. So I see it as a very holistic or 300-degree perspective rather than very narrow, which some folks do. They're focusing on one particular area. I see it as sort of a macro topic. I also think about it economically because in our culture, for better or worse, most or pretty much everything follows the money. Okay, we're a consumer capitalist society. We're much about money. And I think ageism and age friendliness could be about money too. So you're going to see that theme throughout my presentation. And again, this is how I differ myself from some of the other people out there who are in this space. I think that equality is determined in this country heavily by the ability to earn and spend money. That's just who we are, for better or worse. I think worse, but I can't change that. It's just who we are. Okay, so my first chapter is about ageism in this country. A few years ago, I wrote a book called Aging in America, which is a cultural history of aging. And so I borrowed some of those thoughts into this book and sort of rethought them. But I do say that today's less than friendly view of older adults is really 2 centuries in the making. It wasn't always that way. In the very beginning of the country, just to be able to live a long life, say 70, was pretty rare. And so folks tended to look at that as sort of divinely ordained, that God was blessing you if you lived a life more than, say, 50 years. But that began to rapidly change as early as the early 19th century. Really, the second generation of Americans began thinking about what we would today call youth culture. So it's 2 centuries in the making. I think today where we are, I designate big business as the epicenter of ageism. Again, that's my take on this. And I see it every day. I see it in my own personal life. There's conscious, overt discrimination in hiring and firing of older people. A lot of big companies just don't want people in their third act of life around, and they overtly take ways to make that happen. Okay, so the workplace, I think, is both the problem, and I think it's the biggest solution. I think the biggest opportunity to end ageism resides through work. That is my thesis of this book. And that's backed up by research by a fellow named Carl Pilmer at Cornell. And he found that good jobs, good paying jobs with benefits, real management jobs, not the Walmart greeter or the McDonald's burger flipper. I'm talking about managerial jobs, tend to lead to greater equality and acceptance across society, not just work, but just in everyday life. So that's a really important finding. So the conclusion I make is that an age diverse or intergenerational, multi-generational, whatever you want to call it, workforce is our best chance to end broader cultural ageism, whether it be economic or social. That's what I key in on. Okay. I'm not sure if everybody knows about the age-friendly community movement. It's wonderful, it's global. It was started by WHO, the World Health Organization, and our AARP here is basically running that program here in the United States. And up to this point, 562, I checked this morning, different communities, including different communities in Miami-Dade, where I live, have enlisted in the program, which is a commitment to make your community or neighborhood more, quote, age-friendly. It's not just limited to older adults, but it's thinking about the needs and wants of older adults, whether that be making it more walkable, having better transportation services, having activities for older folks, having affordable houses, whatever. All it means when you join this program is that you've made a commitment and are working towards it. It doesn't mean necessarily that you've achieved it, but I think it's a great first step in working towards that. It's moved up from the community stage to the state level, which is great. There are 8 states, there are a lot of counties, but there are 8 states in the network. And obviously every state promotes that as being age-friendly because it's a way to attract older folks who they want in their neighborhoods and communities. They see it as an asset rather than a liability, which is more the case in business today. And I also see it as a unifying force because people from all different backgrounds and experiences are coming together onto a committee and working towards a common goal. So I think it's a rare case that people are working together. All we talk about is divisiveness and differences. This is a great example of how people are from all stripes are working together to make something good happen. So I see this as improving quality of life for all citizens. This is America at its best. This is what our founding fathers envisioned. This is a great example of how diversity is great for community life. And really, we're living up to the democratic ideals that the founding fathers thought about 200 something years ago. So I love this concept. I think it's a model for how all institutions and organizations, not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector, should approach what I call genuine or authentic inclusivity, not just checking a box, rhetorical inclusivity. This is real. This is the real thing. And I think we need to take this approach and extend it further. So the question I ask at the end of that chapter is, can this model be applied to the workplace to bridge what I see as a gap between the public and private arenas? So how could local grassroots initiatives in Coral Gables or Miami Gardens be far ahead of big companies when it comes to this? It's incredible to me. So I think this is a great way to make corporations' rhetorical commitment to age-friendliness much more than say, okay, it's a great idea, we'll commit to it, but not a lot of action behind it. This is action-based, this is real, and I think we need, again, to broaden this model. Okay, my third chapter in the book is called Age-Friendly Work. I've talked a lot about it already. I'm seeing ageism in the workplace today, a legacy of over 100 years of discrimination by corporate America. It used to be based on gender or race. I think we're getting a lot better in that respect. So this is just part of that paradigm. And DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion folks will even admit, I've seen this in a couple of studies now, that they're rhetorically committed to it, but they rarely address it. Just 8% in the best known study will actually address ageism as part of their DEI initiatives. And that's just shameful. That's just ridiculous. If the people that we're putting in charge of diversity are not truly interested in holistic diversity, we have a problem. Okay. The courts have not been supportive at all in ending age discrimination in the workplace. Going back, I went back 50 years at all levels. Will it be local, state, and even federal, even the Supreme Court, who has some pretty old people on that Supreme Court, generally do not rule in favor of employees. They tend to favor employers. And work is being done now to try to change the law. It's much more difficult to prove a case of age discrimination than that based on race or gender. And that is something that should be addressed. And something I remind people, readers, hopefully, is that work is an important in life, just not for younger adults or younger people, but for everyone. It offers money, which we all need. I have just as many bills as, if not more, than a 20-something. So it offers financial security. Work is a prime source of who we are in our culture, our identity. And there's a lot of studies showing that what you do as a job or occupation offers emotional well-being. So it shouldn't just end at a certain age. It should continue as long as you want, or as you need, or as long as you're able, as I see it. And the irony in keeping older workers out is that, again, research has shown them to be relatively loyal, satisfied, hardworking, and bringing a sense of wisdom. It's an overused term, but I like it, to the job. And that means having good judgment. This isn't their first rodeo. They've been around the block. And good judgment leads to good decision-making, which, of course, you need at any job. So a multi-generational, intergenerational workforce would be a plus versus minus employers if they're open to that. And just like DEI, I see human resource departments as the key to an age-friendly workplace. They have immense power. They are the gatekeepers of and to big business. And to get through their bots, their artificial intelligence bots who are looking for ways to screen people out, particularly based on your age, whether that be your, when you graduated college, really needs to be addressed. That really is a major problem. Sometimes I apply for jobs, this is just part of my anthropology background, just to see if I'll get an interview for a job that I am eminently qualified for. Jobs that I've even had before in my past, and I won't get a call simply because what I think to be is my age. Okay, my next chapter is about age-friendly marketing. And this is something I wrote in yet another book about aging called Boomers 3.0. And I argue that baby boomers are still the key to the marketplace, despite marketers' focus on youth. We have spending power. We were raised to be professional consumers. It's sort of in our DNA since the 50s or 60s. And now this concept of the longevity economy is in circulation, which really represents trillions of dollars. And what that means is as people live longer, older adults will account for the majority of the spending in the marketplace. So it's silly, if nothing else, to ignore boomers as consumers just because they tend to be older people. So when you look at commercials, you see a lot of underrepresentation, a lot of misrepresentation of older people. And if you think about it, that makes perfect sense because we're an ageist culture. A lot of the people working at these companies have inherited ageist attitudes. We learn ageist attitudes as children. I see it in my daughter already, just picking up cues about old people. So it makes sense that that managers tend to be ageist because we were raised with that sort of ethos. Okay, when you do see aging presented in the media, more often than not, it's a negative experience. You want to try to delay it, stopping. Even my PBS station has aging backwards on. This is PBS. I love PBS, but that is a ridiculous concept and is just reinforcing the idea that aging is a negative thing that you want to delay or stop. I don't see it that way at all. I'm embracing it. I think it's a wonderful ride. I'm enjoying every minute. A lot of the demons that I had as a young person are gone, okay? So I see it as a very positive thing, and I wish marketers did as well. The whole concept of anti-aging, which to me is an oxymoron, and anti-human. If you're not aging, you're not human. And that's just compounding the problem. It's, again, reinforcing ageist attitudes and practices. So I wish those sort of products would just go away. I'm not against making yourself look better with a lotion or something, but the concept of aging, anti-aging is just ridiculous and absurd. So ageism is being directed to older adults, both as employees, which I addressed in my work chapter, and consumers, which I addressed in this chapter. And I think we need, again, for a more holistic 300-degree age-friendly model to think about to end this problem. Okay, my last chapter is called Age-Friendly Responsibility. I don't know if you know this, but corporate social responsibility, or CSR, is a huge movement within business today, probably equal to the DEI movement. And it's the concept where companies are not just in it for money, which is what Milton Friedman, the premier economist of his day, said in a very famous essay going back a couple of decades ago. He's been totally overthrown and dismissed, and saying that companies really should be more than increasing the worth of their company for their shareholders, and they should be about doing good works. So the prevalent belief in business today is that being a good corporate citizen is not just good for business, but good for society as well. And this is a result, as I see it, as a very strong, positive, activist spirit in the air these days, backed up by the Me Too movement and Black Lives Matter, which is wonderful. And the values of ethicalness, transparency, and empathy are in ascent. This is a wonderful thing. And you can see the parallels with where I go in this chapter with age friendliness. Why isn't age friendliness part of this huge positive movement? So there we go. I see this as an ideal framework to accommodate age friendliness. It could be aligned with what's called ESG principles, which is being responsible environmentally, socially, and governing. And it's a great platform to tie into what's going at the community level, my chapter 2, by supporting local, state, and national programs, which are sponsored by ART. Why not partner with that wonderful program? Okay, so I wrap up. You can see this book is basically a rallying call to address what I see as major social and an economic problem that are affecting real people, millions of lives. There's still a lot of boomers out there and greatest generation people out there. The numbers are amazingly similar to the original 70 something million boomers, because the ones that have died off have been replaced by immigrants of that generation. So there's still tens of millions of boomers and still quite a few greatest generation people who are being affected by ageism. I see this as unsupportable. I don't see how you can make a case for it. It's unsustainable. And basically, it's just un-American. It is not consistent with our ideals and what this country is about. So I am trying to move from rhetoric to action. I just don't want to be preaching to the choir. I want real change to happen. You know, that's in baby boomers' blood. We were all about changing society in the 60s and 70s, and we're the same people. And I think this is a cause worth addressing. And this is a great case to, as the cliche goes, think global and act local. This is a global movement. It's just not in the United States, but it really has to happen at the local level. So it's a great case of that. Is it a significant challenge? Yes, it's a huge challenge. As I mentioned before, this is deeply culturally rooted. This will take probably at least a generation to change, if it changes at all. I see this as a long-term issue. Decades-old attitudes about older adults are still in play. We're still thinking about older people as if we were in the 50s or 60s. And perception and reality are not in sync. Today's 70-year-old is probably a lot different, both mentally and physically, than his or her version in the 1950s. So society, in a way, hasn't caught up with the way we think about our older adults. There's a gap there as well. But I do think, I end on a positive note, I think there are good reasons to be optimistic. First of all, America is a pluralistic nation. It's just who we are. So age should be accommodated, if only because of that. We're all about democracy. And if you do look back to a generation or more, we've made great strides along the lines of gender and race. And I think there's an opportunity to do that with age as well. I'm seeing very exciting form of grassroots activism, what I call age activism, which reminds me a lot of the civil rights and feminist movements of decades ago. I was around for that and part of it in some ways. And I'm very optimistic because of the younger generations who are becoming more and more diverse, and will be until 2045, when the minority becomes the majority, when there'll be more people of color than Anglos. So I think a lot of this will happen just because of younger generations being diverse and thinking diversely. Okay, why can't age be part of that? I also, at the end of my book, make a few more specific recommendations. One of them is, why not dovetail age friendliness into existing initiatives within big business? This is like an alphabet soup of diversity, equity, inclusion, corporate social responsibility, or environmental social governance. And I think that's a great way to do it, because it's a more robust way and friendlier way, if you will, to think about it within a larger rubric than a sort of a standalone initiative. I think that could work. I think we also have to think about age friendliness in broader terms. That's not just about aging or old people. This is our chance through age friendliness to be more sustainable, more ethical, green, if you will. The concept of green now is being extended and broadened beyond the environment. It's just become sort of a big idea. And I'm very clear on this. I see this as a human rights issue, and that's the way the UN sees it as well. The United Nations is also working on this front, and they see it as a human rights issue, that people, regardless of their age, deserve equal rights, and that this is what this comes down to, really. I think we need to do a better job of drawing the analogy to less acceptable forms of discrimination, whether that be gender, race, physical ability, your sexual preferences. And I think we have to think about this as a philosophy or a way of thinking rather than a special interest cause. You know, it's not like this minority group of people who are angry and want equal rights. This is just a way of thinking about our country and the world in a good way, I think. And again, back to who we are as a country, this is entirely consistent with our democratic principles. So why not live up to them? I mentioned the longevity economy. You know, if nothing else, there are dollars to be had up there. So if that's the incentive you need, I'm fine with that through the longevity economy by marketing to older consumers in a responsible way. And those marketers who are not are probably leaving millions of dollars on the table because they want everything about them to look cool, okay? That's just a business mistake. And I see a big opportunity to change the image of aging just through the media and advertising, okay? I think that we could be very helpful. So I end up here in my books by saying that I think we should promote aging as what it really is, which to me is a positive, universal, we're all aging all the time, continuous and entirely normal experience, not something that happens to the other, you know, these other people. And if you look at it from a marketing standpoint, aging is really suffering from a major image problem. It needs an image makeover or redo. You know, we need an ad agency to help us with this. So why not show reality versus perception, real people, not what we think it is? You know, can we get celebrities involved in rock stars? A lot of them are old. You know, can we get the Rolling Stones who are like 300 years old collectively? You know that? Look at the numbers, or Aerosmith, whoever, Bob Dylan. And maybe the slogan could be something like, aging, it's a good thing. You know, it's a lot better than the alternative, as they say. So that is, that's a summary of my book. It'll be on sale in a month. It is, you could pre-order if you are so inclined. And if you have any questions at all after today, feel free to email me at lsamuel19@yahoo. I'm happy to respond. I love talking and thinking about this subject. So please take me up on that if you'd like.
Larry, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone.